Hey, this is Dan from Rambling Ambition, and we are working on our sprinter van again today. Today is all about air compressors. So if you're new to the channel, we are upfitting our Sprinter 170 extended all-wheel drive van, and today we are going to be dealing with onboard air. So in our last van, we had our air compressor mounted in the back of the van. And for a lot of people, air in your tires is not so much about traction, but it's more about the comfort of the ride. So street tires on vans have high pressure in them, and on dirt roads with corrugations and just lots of undulations, they will beat you to death. So the ability to air down to make the ride a little bit nicer is really, really important. Air pressure is also important in snow and some other things. That's got a whole different kind of animal of talking, but for most of the people, airing down is all about comfort for ride. So when you're going off-road, if you're going to be off for a long extended period of time, being able to air down is really important. So if this is something you're interested in, please stick around for the video. All right, so I'm a big fan of the ARB twin compressor. They are continuous duty cycles, so you can run them as long as you need to run them. I had one on my Jeep where it was easily filling up 35-inch tires when we'd air up and air down. So it does it pretty quickly, it does it pretty efficiently. Like I said, in the old van, we had it connected to the 12-volt battery system, and we had it mounted in the back of the van. What I didn't like about that is it's loud. So ARB has a new upgraded brushless version of their compressor. It's kind of really expensive. I already have this one, and so that's what we're going to install. So we initially had thought about putting it in this space right here, but honestly what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to have that space available if I wanted to add an extra 24-volt battery to improve our system if we found that we needed it. And so I started looking for solutions about where we can mount it. FlatLine Van Co makes a plate, super simple, like this, and it mounts in the engine bay on the passenger side. So we'll go take a look at that. So on the passenger side of the van, right in the front wheel well, this whole space is wide open. So FlatLine Van Co came up with a bracket that matches the contour of the van's fender, and it fits really nicely and fits the ARB twin compressor. A couple things we got to do. We have to remove the cabin air intake. It's just 4 10mm bolts and it slides right out. You have to pop this wiring harness off using a trim tool because we got to use 2 of the factory bolts. This is a no drill issue, so that all of the hardware comes in a hardware kit along with it. The only other thing that can be a little bit of a pain is we have to take this wheel well liner out because access to the bolts holes that the bracket mounts to that front fender are underneath of that wheel well liner. So a little bit of work to do there, but not much. And we'll take a look right now at how the compressor actually mounts to the plate. So on the bottom of this air compressor, there are 8 holes. And this bracket is designed to line up with those 8 holes. We're only going to put in 4 bolts because that's really all it needs, but that's kind of how it sits. Now you got a couple choices on how you get air out of it. You can put a chuck on the top so that when you open up the compressor or open up the hood, you can plug right into it. We are going to utilize the system I had on the old van, which is a series of high pressure stainless steel braided cables with quick chucks. So there'll be a quick mount right in the front to manage the front tires, and then we'll have an air chuck all the way at the back of the van to handle the rear tires. So you can plug in either way. The other benefit is that we have air that we can blow on and blow off. It just makes it really nice if for whatever reason you need air, you have it available for you. And like I said, that twin compressor, it's 100% duty cycle at like 40 PSI. It's got plenty of air for everything that you need to do. And it's really super easy to put together. So in order to mount it, what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount the compressor to the plate first. And then we'll go in, we'll take off that passenger air box, and we'll take off the inner fender, and it should go pretty quick. All right, so we just placed the plate up against the bottom of the air compressor, kind of like I showed you. And FlatLine Van Co suggests that you mount the compressor to the plate before installing it, because it's going to be impossible to get to these bolts once you do that, once this mounting system is in place. So we're just taking the supplied bolts I already had for our mounting solution that came with the compressor, and then we're just using some blue Loctite paste. And these have got a 10mm head to them, so now that they're all in, we'll just go ahead and tighten them down. They've got a flat washer and a lock washer, so that'll hold it nice and secure, and the blue Loctite just ensures that it's not going to back out. You don't want to strip these screws out. So FlatLine Van Co suggests, so there are two sides. There are two sides to this compressor. There's the fan side and then the air intake side. And it suggests that you put the air intake side to the fender. Now this just has the screw-in air filters. You can buy a remote air filter kit that lifts those up even higher. But I don't really see the need for that, but that kit is available if it's something that you're interested in. So now that the compressor is mounted, we're gonna go ahead and the cabin air filter intake box, and then we'll work on that fender liner. All right, so like I said, there's just these four 10mm bolts or nuts. You just gotta loosen them, and then you can spin them off by hand, and then the intake comes right out. So my suggestion is to once you get those nuts loose, to go ahead and take them off and then put them right back on so you don't lose them. All right, so there's the four nuts, and then this just lifts right out just like that. Super simple. Like I said, I'm gonna put these nuts right back on so they do not get lost. And really what this does is it opens up this entire space to be able to get the compressor mounted in here. I suppose you could probably mount everything without doing this, but why? When it's that easy to take it off, look at how much space we have around right here. So next step is we're going to go ahead and take the fender liner off, and that's a couple push pins. So you'll need a straight head screwdriver, you'll need that 10mm socket, and then the pry tool. So you can see there are a couple of these nuts that we have to take off, and they are plastic, so don't strip them out. And then here are the little push pins. Just get under that with a flatbed screwdriver and they'll pop right off. And you pull that pin out and it lets the ears of the push pin come out. So hopefully you can see that. We have a couple under the bumper. All right, so there's one more of those 10mm nuts, and it sits right back here. I forgot about that, but if you don't have that Falcon shock, you're not going to have that issue. And then now we're just going to pull the fender out like that. So you can see we have access to the two bolts right here. And I think that's going to make it easy to set this in. So we'll grab that compressor and put it in place. So coming with the kit, you get two sizes of flat washers, a large fender washer and a smaller washer. You get some nylon lock nuts, some 2 carriage bolts, and 2 hex bolts, and it comes with an included wrench. And so what happens is the 2 carriage bolts with the big fender washers go through those 2 holes, and that you can see from inside the fender, and then the 2 smaller bolts go into that rail where we disconnected that wiring harness. All right, so we're going to grab the compressor and just set it into place. You can see how, you can see here where this tab mounts into that other hole, and then on the back side you can't see it, but it's right up against the fender where that next carriage bolt goes. And then these 2 front pieces align with that lip. We'll go ahead and get those bolts kind of put in place. I'll show you as much as I can, but it's kind of in a weird spot. So here are the 2 carriage bolts, and they'll go kind of like that. So note to self, put the carriage bolts in first, and we'll take the big, we'll take 2 flat washers, 2 of these, and 2 of the nuts, and we'll go ahead and screw those in. And just so a trick is you can put some pressure on that washer, and that's going to hold the bolt so that you can get the nut on it. And then the reason for the carriage bolt is so that you can tighten this down without having to have a socket or a wrench on it. All right, we're going to leave those loosely in place until we get the other 2 bolts down on that front frame piece. All right, so we leave these bolts a little bit loose. I did put a piece of electrical tape over it just to kind of hold it down. And then we put the other bolts in to this frame section, and it's raining, so I've got to stop. We gotta love Colorado in the summer. So we're wet, and we got blue sky. It just is what it is. So anyway, so we place these bolts in, and then underneath we just put the washer and the nuts, and that is a 7/16 inch nut. So there is a piece of felt right here that you can kind of push out of the way to the back of those bolts, to the nuts that are back there. So do what you will with that. So with that is, I'm using an extension that has a wobble head on it to be able to get to that that forward bolt, and then we'll just use our so we got those done. So our next ones are the ones that had big fender washers. All right, now you should be able to see that. So that's the beauty of the carriage bolt, is that it'll hold into that bracket, and we'll just tighten it down. We can help ourselves out by kind of doing that with a, and that'll keep the carriage bolt into that piece until we get enough leverage, or it's close enough where I don't need a screwdriver anymore. Okay, so basically that's the install of that bracket. We'll go ahead and we'll reinstall the fender liner the just same way that we took it out. So we'll put the push pins back in, and we'll put the retaining nuts back on. Okay, we got that fender liner all back in. You can see how those screws are all hidden. So we got a lot of cloud cover, so I'm just going to show you, where we are. So the compressor is in. So we do have 2 wiring connections. Let's put this right there. 2 wiring connections that provide power and control to the motor. And we'll make those connections and run those wires, but I just wanted to show you one more thing. before we finish. So if you remember, there are some holes in the bracket right there, and that's where these wiring harness clips clip into. So every ARB compressor has a power wire feed and then an accessory wire feed. The power wire is what powers the compressor itself, and then this harness is what powers the switch on the compressor, and then you can add a bunch of things, none of which I use. We've got that main harness running behind and running up over everything, and it's tucked away nice and neat, and then we'll terminate that and create our power feeds on a different time. So the last thing we have to do is add the braided fitting that's going to run down to the front bumper, and we'll do that real quick as we're getting darker and darker this evening. Okay, so we have our fitting in place, and now we're just going to put this box back together. So we're going to take these 4 flange nuts off that we saved by putting back in their original location. And on the bottom of that box, there's a little piece that fits in here that stabilizes it, and then we'll just screw it back on. All right, so that was the install of our FlatLine Van Co tray for our ARB air compressor to fit on the passenger side fender well of the spinner van. Pretty easy install. The biggest pain was getting the inner fender liner off. Other than that, the install was actually pretty simple. So I hope you got something from the video, just some takeaways. Just know that you got to pull that fender down with those carriage bolts, a little bit of electrical tape over top of them, keeps them down while you set it in place. And just make sure everything lines up and you put it back in place. And so it was actually super easy for getting that compressor mounted. So I'm kind of really happy with how it kind of fits right in there, and it has its own home. So we will do, if people want, we'll do a separate video on how to wire it and then how to plumb it. So how to make those connections so that we have the air chucks where we want them to. If not, I have another video that kind of goes over that. I'll put that in the link or in the description below. So again, this is Dan from Ramblin' Ambition. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the channel. Give yourself a giant thumbs up if you made it this far. And if you need a place to mount your ARB air compressor, the FlatLine Van Co mount's a pretty good one. This is Dan, Ramblin' Ambition. We'll see you next time.